Linda Marsh knew this the way she knew her own heartbeat, a quiet, persistent fact she kept returning to, poking it gently the way a tongue finds a loose tooth. She'd brined it for 2 days. Rosemary and thyme and the juice of 3 oranges, the way her mother had taught her back when their kitchen in Dayton smelled of warmth and someone always needed the bathroom. She'd set the table for 2. Folded the cloth napkins into the shape of swans, something she'd learned from a YouTube video at 11 p.m. the night before, practicing over and over until her arthritic fingers cooperated. She'd lit the white pillar candles. She'd put out the good wine glasses, the crystal ones from her wedding that almost never left the cabinet anymore. And then she had sat down on the couch to wait for the phone to ring. That was at 12:15 p.m. It was now 6:47. Linda was 63 years old, recently retired from 22 years as a school librarian, and she had, by most measures, learned to be alone. She'd been doing it in earnest since David left, not dramatically, not to anyone else. He'd simply drifted out of the marriage the way water moves through sand, until one day she realized there was no marriage left to speak of. That was 8 years ago. She had her garden. She had her book club, though attendance had dwindled to 4 loyal women who mostly wanted to drink Riesling and complain about their hips. She had her cat, Ptolemy, an enormous orange tabby who was indifferent to her feelings in the specific way only cats can manage, which she found honest and restful. She had Caitlin. Or she'd had Caitlin, in the way mothers have adult daughters partially, and on terms renegotiated every few years without either of them quite realizing it. Caitlin was 34 and lived in Seattle and worked for a tech company whose function Linda could never adequately explain to anyone. She was brilliant and busy, and sometimes, Linda suspected, embarrassed by her mother without meaning to be, the way successful children sometimes are embarrassed by the smallness of where they came from. They talked on Sundays, or they were supposed to. It was Caitlin who had proposed the arrangement. "Let's make it a standing thing, Mom, every Sunday at 7 your time," and for the first year it had held. Then it became most Sundays, then Sundays when Caitlin wasn't traveling, then whenever they could. But Christmas, Linda had always believed, was inviolate. At 7:00, she heated up a plate of turkey and sat at the table by herself and ate it while watching the candles burn. It was good. She was an excellent cook. This seemed, tonight, more cruel than comforting. She picked up her phone and typed, "Just checking in, hope your day is wonderful, sweetheart." She added a small Christmas tree emoji because Caitlin had once told her emoji made messages feel warmer. Then she set the phone face up on the table and watched it. Ptolemy jumped into the empty chair and stared at the turkey. "Don't," Linda said. He stared at the turkey. She gave him a small piece of turkey. At some point she moved to the couch, and at some point she turned on the television, one of those holiday movies where everyone wears impractical coats and learns something about themselves in a snow-covered Vermont town. She watched without watching it, her phone in her lap, her Christmas lights blinking in the window, the colored ones, not the tasteful white ones Caitlin had suggested last year. Linda liked the colored ones. She had always liked the colored ones. Her mother had used colored ones. This, she supposed, was her small rebellion. At 9:15, she did something she never did. She opened Instagram. She had an account, technically. Caitlin had set it up for her 2 years ago so she could see photos of her nephew's soccer games, Caitlin's brother-in-law's boy, no blood relation, but Linda loved him the way you love anyone small who gives you their full attention. She never posted. She barely scrolled. The whole apparatus confused and faintly depressed her, all those beautiful lives stacked on top of each other like a pyramid she was always standing outside of. But tonight, she typed Caitlin's name into the search bar. She wasn't even sure why. She told herself she just wanted to see her daughter's face. Maybe she'd posted something, a little Christmas morning photo, something Linda could hold onto like a hand. Caitlin had posted something. Several somethings. The first was a reel. The word meant nothing to Linda, but the video was self-explanatory, and it showed Caitlin in a restaurant, not a small or quiet restaurant but a large and luminous one, ceilings strung with lights, people crowded around long wooden tables, everyone holding glasses aloft. Someone had tagged the location, Nabu, Malibu. Someone had tagged the date, December 25th. The caption said, "The only way to do Christmas honestly, clinking sparkles, no family guilt, just good food and better people." Linda read it 3 times. No family guilt. She sat very still with that for a moment, the phone warm in her hand, Ptolemy purring against her leg, the Vermont movie still playing. The woman in the impractical coat had apparently learned her lesson, was running through the snow toward someone, and Linda felt something move through her that she could not immediately name. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was something more precise and more painful, the recognition that she had not been forgotten. She had been decided against. There is a meaningful difference, and the difference is what kept her awake later, staring at the ceiling while the house made its small nighttime sounds. She had been, apparently, the guilt her daughter was skipping. Here is what Linda did not do. She did not comment on the post. She did not call. She did not text a second time or a third. She did not cry, which surprised her, because she had expected to cry and had been bracing for it the way you brace for a wave. The wave didn't come. What came instead was a cold, clarifying quiet. She put the phone down. She blew out the candles. She wrapped up the rest of the turkey carefully. It really was a beautiful bird, and waste was waste, and stood in the kitchen for a moment listening to the refrigerator hum. Then she sat down and wrote in her journal. She had kept a journal since she was 14 years old, 50 spiral-bound notebooks stacked in the closet of the second bedroom, a record of her entire interior life that no one had ever read and that she planned to burn before she died, mostly as a gift to whoever would have to clean out the house. Tonight she wrote 3 pages without stopping. She wrote about the table set for 2. She wrote about the swan napkins. She wrote about Caitlin's face in the video, flushed and laughing, her hair down, looking as happy as Linda had ever seen her, and the complicated truth that this happiness did not cancel out the cruelty, and that the cruelty did not cancel out the happiness. And that holding both at once was among the harder skills adult life required. She wrote, "I think I have been making myself small so that she would find me easy to love. I'm not sure it's been working." She underlined it. In the morning, Linda did something else she had never done. She told a friend. Not tentatively, not with the hedging she usually deployed. "Oh, it's fine, she's busy. You know how young people are," but plainly over coffee at Patricia's kitchen table, while Patricia's grandchildren banged things together in the next room. She told Patricia about the table and the swan napkins and Caitlin's post, and then she sat back and let herself be seen. "Oh, Linda," Patricia said. "I know. That's a rotten thing to do." "Yes," Linda agreed, and that was all. She didn't defend Caitlin and she didn't condemn her. She just let it be the rotten thing it was. Patricia refilled her coffee. One of the grandchildren appeared in the doorway holding a small plastic dinosaur and looking at Linda with frank curiosity. Linda waggled her fingers at him. He ran away. "Are you going to call her?" Patricia asked. Linda considered the question with the care it deserved. "Eventually," she said, "but not yet. I have a few things to sort out first." Here is what Linda sorted out. She sorted out that she had been waiting, for years now, for Caitlin to come back to her, not from anywhere specific, but from the cool, competent, somewhat sealed version of herself she had become, back to the girl who used to fall asleep on the couch with her head in Linda's lap during thunderstorms. She had been waiting patiently and quietly, not wanting to push, not wanting to crowd, trying to be the kind of mother a daughter wanted to call rather than felt obligated to call. And it had been an act of love, she believed that, but it had also been, she could see now, an act of disappearance. She had been making herself easier to overlook. She sorted out that this was going to change. She also, on the 2nd of January, in a move she would later describe as either brave or foolish depending on her mood, called Caitlin. Not to confront, not to perform, just to say, clearly and without theater, "I spent Christmas alone waiting for you. I saw the post. I'm not going to pretend I didn't, and I'm not going to pretend it didn't hurt." There was a silence on the phone so long that Linda thought the call had dropped. Then Caitlin said quietly, "I know, I'm sorry, Mom." That was all she said, and Linda let it be enough for now, not because it was enough, but because some repairs are long and you have to start somewhere, and this was somewhere. Millions of people would eventually see Caitlin's post. Not because of anything Linda did. She never shared it, never mentioned it publicly, kept the whole episode locked in her journal and her chest. But the post had been set to public, and someone had screenshotted it and captioned it, the daughter-coded Christmas post every mother dreads, and from there it had traveled the way things travel now, fast and everywhere and without anyone's permission. People were furious on Linda's behalf, though they didn't know Linda, had invented a version of her from a second-hand screenshot. Some people defended Caitlin, said every adult had the right to a boundary-setting Christmas, said chosen family was valid, said obligation was corrosive. Some people were just cruel to both of them. Linda read none of it. She had lost interest in the opinions of people who didn't know the shape of her kitchen or the name of her cat. What she knew was this. Christmas was over, and she had survived it, and the turkey had been good, and she had written 3 of the truest pages of her life by candlelight on the longest night of the year. And somewhere in Seattle, her daughter had said, "I'm sorry, Mom," quietly, and without being asked, and Linda had decided to believe she meant it. She would water her garden in the morning. Ptolemy would follow her along the rows, pretending he wasn't following her. The colored lights were still in the window. Some things, she had decided, she was keeping.